De facto, you could still be married to someone and do a de facto relationship. You'll find, however, that if you want to register that relationship, most of the states and territories that have relationship registrations don't allow you to be married to someone else and register a relationship. So there's a problem with registered relationships. The 12-month requirement is the exception here. Remember, 12 months if you're de facto. If you can't meet the 12 months, then you look to register a relationship. So I've got one at the moment. We're going to do a relationship. We're getting all the paperwork ready for that to lodge and register that with New South Wales, and then they'll go ahead and do their onshore application for de facto. There may be issues with divorce in some countries like the Philippines, for example. I think that's still the case. In the Philippines, you can't get divorces. It used to be the case in Italy and Ireland, but that's all changed. So it's important to know, well, can you get a divorce? Because if you can't get a divorce, then you're stuck. You might have to just do de facto. You might be able to get a divorce in Australia, but the person has to be in Australia to meet the Family Law Act requirements. Okay. 4 factors, 4 pillars as they're sometimes called. Wayne says annulments. Yeah, but that's a bit different to a divorce because an annulment requires that the marriage was never valid in the first place. It's a very traditional Catholic thing, which is quite problematic. Financial aspects of the relationship. First factor, joint ownership of real estate and major assets. Joint liability, so you both have a loan maybe, or you're both on a credit card and both names on it. Pooling of financial resources. So does the income you get from your work both go into the same account? When you go down to the supermarket, your Coles, Woolies, Aldi, or whatever the supermarket is, and you buy your groceries every week, you flat the credit card or your phone at the machine, whose account is that on? Is that a joint account? Or do you just always use that account for payment of bills, payment of the electricity, payment of the rent, all these sort of things? These are things you've got to dive into. And you want to sit down and go through the bank statements of the clients and identify, oh, there's the rent going out. Oh, that's good. Yeah, there's the electricity bill. That's useful. It takes a lot of time to get this all done. Are there legal obligations for each other? Sharing of day-to-day household expenses. That's the rent, electricity, that sort of thing. Nature of the household is the second factor. Are there children? And who looks after them? Who cares for the children? Who feeds the children? Changes them, takes them to school, that sort of thing. Responsibilities for housework. Who does the washing up? Who does the cooking? Who does the cleaning? Who does the washing of the clothes? The ironing. That's one of my exciting tasks that I enjoy doing while watching something on the TV. Social aspects. Do you present to other people, family and friends, as a couple, either married or de facto? And do your friends think that you are in a relationship? Do you undertake social activities together? Are you a member of the gym together? Do you have gym certificates? Both go to the same gym. Or maybe you both attend some community organisation, or you both go to some church or temple or some mosque, and the person there can say, oh, yes, we know this. Do they always come together and come as a couple to our church or mosque or synagogue? So these things can be quite useful. Or maybe you're both in the swimming club. Who knows? The chess club, the book reading club, whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. You're both in it together, and look at it. My wife and I can both show we've got gym memberships together. Nature of commitment. How long have you been together? How long have you lived together? Emotional degree of companionship and emotional support. This is really important. So maybe there's a sickness in the family, or a parent or a sibling or some close friend dies, and the partner then can show emotional support and companionship for their partner who's just lost someone very important in their life. Talk about that in your statement, about how that was really important and significant. These are the 4 factors, okay? And they're the same in the regulations, but just remember 1.15a is married, 1.09a is de facto. Don't get them mixed up. There's the issues in policy, relationship registration. That's all the different acts of parliament that can work. I think someone mentioned earlier about WA is not on there. For some reason it isn't. I have no idea why it is, but anyway, just about every other state and territory is. Infidelity. This may come as a shock, but sometimes people are not loyal to their partner. I know this is a shock to you. So, does that impact on a relationship? Remember, a relationship is to the exclusion of all others. So if it was just a one-off affair or one-off little event, that may be explainable. And I had once with a client, we're preparing the application. I said, have you got any children? He goes, I said, oh yeah, tell me. He goes, oh yeah, well, I had an affair with this woman. I only saw her a couple of times, but I've got a daughter with her. Okay, right. Okay, the form requires that daughter to be listed, not part of the application. Now we must explain that and say, does your wife know about this? You have to tell her before the application is lodged. We have to explain what happened there. Even if it was just really short, you need to talk about these things. Western notions of romantic love are not required. So forget all the Mills and Boon, all those movies, all those romantic comedies that you see on TV or Netflix or whatever. None of them are relevant, okay? The only one which is possibly relevant is the old movie Green Card with Gerard Depardieu and Andy McDowell, made in the 1980s, which was looking at basically the criteria for a marriage in the US and could he get a green card to live there. Some interesting things in that which are still relevant. Waive is a case where it says absence of love and affection, but you can still meet the criteria. There's no requirement for people to say they love each other, even though you'd expect that. What happened in waive was the client said, I love everyone. And the immigration case officer said, well, yeah, what about your partner? Yeah, I love everyone. They go, well, clearly you can't love everyone, so therefore you're not really in a genuine relationship. And the court goes, well, that's ridiculous. There's no requirement in the regulations that say that someone loves you. So it's an interesting case on that basis. There's a thing there. This is known as the Frank Sinatra case because the judge quoted the famous Frank Sinatra song at the start, literally at the start. Sometimes judges can get away with this sort of thing. SZOXP was a case where someone was in detention. There's our requirements in the regulations. Health checks are required. You have to pass them. There is a waiver provision, 4007. One fails, all fail, so that's the children have to also pass if the children are not Australian citizens. Right. Sorry that was so intense. I just want to do one more thing, if I'm allowed. Michelle, how are we going with the questions?
I'd really like you, if you could, to go into Schedule 1 and just show them
Yes.
how 820 and 100 are
Working together.
connected.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, anecdotally, they would have seen that you apply for an 820, you get granted an 820, and then 2 years down the line, you apply for an 801, which technically is not correct. No. What happens is the 820 and the 801 are lodged at the same time. Now, if they're relying on that 2 years from application lodgement, what happens at 2 years down the line is the 801 is assessed. You're not relodging. You already lodged it way back 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It looks like another lodgement, but what's actually happening is the department is recycling a form. They're just going, can you please update this little questionnaire about your relationship at the 801 stage? It's not a new visa application form. It's just an update to the information that you have already provided to tell us that your application is still ongoing. If it was a visa application, there would be some kind of visa application charge, or it would be stated as nil. But when you look in Schedule 1, the visa application charge is associated with the permanent visa, not the temporary stage.
Let's do it.
Well worth looking. Okay.
Sorry, Vision said double grant. Well, it's actually the temporary has to be granted before the permanent, Vish. But what happens is where it's taking more than 2 years to get the temporary decided, then commonly what they do is they grant you the temporary and the next thing Marla's granted the permanent. But the temporary has to be granted first. Sometimes there might be a year apart or more. Sometimes it's 5 seconds apart on the internet. So let's have a look quickly. I know this is a bit longer than our normal hour, but I just want to share this quickly with you so you can see this. So here we are, happily sitting in LegendCom. Now, we want to lodge a visa, so let's have a look at the subclass. Let's do an onshore one. So we're going to do an 820 partner visa. So let's dive into it and have a look at what the requirements are. And where is it? Here we are, partner, 820. Click. So here's the partner visa. Now what I'm in here is I'm in schedule 2. All right. Schedule 1, I can find by clicking, right-clicking, open new tab, makes it easier. Whole lot of useful information. Any number beginning with 1, and there's 4 numbers in a row, that's schedule 1. Instruments, so this is instruments. There's other issues here that need to be looked at, but we're starting with the Act. Let's have a look, and the regulations, let's have a look at validity issues. Regulation U, Class UK. Okay, visa application charge nil. That's great. That's good, because he just told me it was $9,095, wasn't it? So here it says nil. How does that work? All right, application must be made at the same time as a partner residence. Okay, well, let's have a look at the partner residence. Ah, look, there's the fees. They're in the partner residence. And what is the partner residence? $801. Okay, so let's just go back into the temporary schedule 1. Okay, immigration must be in Australia, but not immigration clearance. Okay, and there's certain restrictions sitting here. Okay, that's a prospective marriage, that's a fiance, but we're only interested in the partners. So there's the schedule 1 links the 2 together. See how that works? I went from schedule 1 and cross-refer. It has to be done at the same time and place as the permanent, the BS. And there it is. There's the BS. Another unfortunate acronym, but anyway. There it is. And there's all the fee things set out there and different criteria. Remember I said all those traps are in applicant, the schedule 1? There is all, I just copied and pasted all that, put it in the PowerPoint. There is all the traps about the schedule 1 provisions about section 48 issues. They're all sitting around there, okay? So let's go back to the 820. Okay, so we paid the fee, we've lodged the 2 of them together. Now what else do we need to do? Okay, there's a sponsoring partner. Okay, primary is not the holder of a 771 transit, meets one of these requirements, 2, 5, 6, 7, or 8. So there's an or there. So you don't have to meet all of them, you just have to meet one of them. The applicant is the spouse. How do we know what spouse means? Where do we find spouse? Section 5 says spouse is defined for us in section 5F. There's spouse. That's the definition. Okay. Or de facto. Where do I find for that? I go running off to definitions. De facto, defined where? Regulation 5. Section 5 CB. Okay, that's there. And what else do I need here? Here's the Schedule 3 issue with compelling. Notice there's no definition of compelling in the regulation at all. Nothing. It's in the policy, but not in the regulation. Next week, we're going to have a look at an example of a Schedule 3 case that picks up multiple issues. I'll put it up and have a separate lecture about it. Then it talks about all the criteria that needs to be met. And this is all time of application criteria. And then criteria at time of decision, that you're still sponsored, you're still in a genuine relationship, and you meet all these criteria. And here we have the Schedule 4, character, 4007 is health, and secondary criteria for family members. So that's where we find the Schedule 1, validity issues. Schedule 2, the criteria for the visa. So Schedule 1, yeah, you know, if you've got an application to look at. Schedule 2, then you can push through and prove all these things you've got to prove. Is it married? Is it de facto? If it's married, Section 5F. Regulation 1.15a. Is it de facto? Section 5CB. Regulation 2.03a tells us it's 12 months or registered relationship. Reg 1.09a tells us the 4 criteria, which happen to be the same 4 criteria as the partner one. The wording is exactly the same as different reg numbers. Okay. Right. There's a few people put up things about cases. I'm not going to do cases this week because I think we've done enough. What we're going to do next week is we'll walk through very recent AAT decision and see how it works. And I'll be able to also show you how I found it. It wasn't just because I'm randomly searching on the internet or someone put it up on Instagram. There's a way of doing this, which makes sense, unlike most of what you see on Instagram. So it's useful to know how to do these things. We'll talk about that next week.